Today I'm down in Southern California taking a look at the new 2023 Niro. For 2023, they're promising more efficiency in the hybrid model. We still get the plug-in hybrid with more power than ever before and a new EV model as well. Now, unfortunately, in this video, I can't tell you how much they cost or how they drive, but we'll talk about everything else on all three of these models. Up front, we have a much more distinctive design than we had before in the Niro, with what they call the Heartbeat DRL here, right inside the full LED headlamp module. The Tiger Nose grille has shrunk considerably. That's what they're calling this tiny section up here. Let me know if you still see some Tiger Nose in that. Personally, I don't really. Some satin chrome accents all the way up front, and more cooling going on in the hybrid and plug-in hybrid models. Over here on the electric vehicle, you notice that the grille below is a little bit smaller. There's some sort of parametric shapes going on in this section and in the Tiger Nose section to give it a more distinctive look and, of course, help improve aerodynamics. We still have the charge port up front. I kind of like having the charge port up front, I have to say. We currently have a long-term EV6. It's in the back, and I much prefer this design. Dimensionally, the Niro has grown in this generation, but it still slots right between the Kia Seltos and the Kia Sportage in the lineup. So this is sort of a compact, sort of a subcompact crossover. On the inside, it's pretty similar to the Toyota RAV4 in terms of interior dimensions. In the plug-in hybrid model, the charge port is right here on the driver's side front fender, and you'll notice the very distinctive and controversial design cue in this generation Niro. It's this black panel right back here. According to Kia, this aero blade is fully functional. There's some air inlets right here on the back of the rear door, and then air comes out at the back of the tail lamp module. From this angle, you can really see the boomerang shape and how it almost disappears into the rear fender. The air outlet is right here on the inside of the tail lamp module. So the air actually goes right in there under the aerofoil, through there, and then out that side. The rear end styling is significantly different than the previous Niro. This particular model is the full EV version, so the lower portion of the bumper is a little bit different than the hybrid and plug-in hybrid. We have the new Kia logo right there, backup camera, and of course the button for the power hatch there. The hatch is still a little bit more vertical than it is horizontal, although the rear window is a bit more steeply raked. And for everybody out there that wishes every EV had a rear wiper, we do have one in the Niro EV. As before, the Niro is going to come in three different power levels. The hybrid model has the same 139 horsepower hybrid system as last time, although it has been redesigned to now get 53 miles per gallon estimated combined. The plug-in hybrid gets a significant bump in power, an extra 41 horsepower, bringing this up to 180 horsepower total from basically the same components that we find in the hybrid: the 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine, the pancake electric motor, and the 6-speed dual clutch transmission. The DCT has always been an important component in the Niro and the Niro plug-in hybrid because it's extraordinarily efficient, it's also quite lightweight, and it feels more like a traditional automatic transmission. So if you don't like the CVT-like feel that we find in a Prius, but you want over 50 miles per gallon or electric range and 180 horsepower, these are going to be excellent options. If you get the full electric version, then we're going to get 200 horsepower out of the electric motor, and all that power is going to happen on the front axle. Charging for the new plug-in hybrid model again happens right over here on the driver's side. You'll get 33 miles of electric range. That's up 7 miles over the last version, thanks to an onboard 11.1 kilowatt-hour battery. Kia's mission when designing the Niro is high efficiency, high electric efficiency, and high hybrid efficiency. And that's the big reason that we don't find a huge battery pack in the plug-in hybrid Niro. By putting a bigger battery pack that would give you 50 or 60 or 70 miles of electric range, you'd really be compromising efficiency for both the gasoline and the hybrid components. So think of this more as a gasoline mitigation device, not a gasoline replacement device. Gasoline replacement is what the EV model is all about. This will give you 253 miles of estimated range. This is going to be less expensive than the base version of the EV6. So if you're cross-shopping the Niro to the EV6, you do have some choices to keep in mind. The EV6 is going to be a little bit bigger, it's going to be rear-wheel drive, and it's going to charge significantly faster than the Niro, but it's actually not going to go quite as far on a charge. This is going to have a little bit more power, but all the power is going to be on the front axle, and we get 253 miles of range, not about 230 miles of range. Thanks to an estimated 53 miles per gallon combined, the hybrid model is going to be the bladder-busting model, giving you 588 miles of range on a full tank. Whether you want to call the Niro a crossover or a pregnant hatchback, I'll leave that up to you, but interior spaciousness is pretty similar to a compact crossover like a RAV4 or CR-V. The driving position is a little bit lower in the Niro, but the seat in this top end trim is pretty comfortable. We have a two-way adjustable lumbar support, 2-position memory over there on the driver's door, and we have a tilt telescopic steering column. This generation Niro gains a lot of the interior styling from the EV6, but we'll take a look at that in a bit. Jumping into the back seat, we find more legroom in here than we had in the last generation. That's thanks to a slightly longer wheelbase and a general rearrangement of the interior. This now has a bit more legroom than we find in a RAV4, and actually it's pretty comparable to some compact crossovers as well, although the rear bench seat is not quite as wide as some of those alternatives. It does mean, however, that if you want to combine adults up front and perhaps some rear-facing child seats, it might be doable now in the Niro. Moving over to the middle seat here, still have plenty of room, about half an inch of headroom or so, thanks to the more bucket shape of this rear bench. Scooting all the way over to the right side, you can definitely see how generous the headroom is here in this model, even though we do have the optional power moonroof. Keep in mind that the Sportage is going to be wider across the rear bench. The EV6 is a little bit wider, but the way that they've shaped the side of the vehicle, the side glass really pinches in towards the rear. So as far as room to the side of my head, I actually think there's a little bit more here in the Niro. Behind the optional power hatch in this model, we have 22.8 cubic feet of cargo capacity. Interestingly, the cargo area is exactly the same size and exactly the same shape in the hybrid and in the EV, but there's a little bit of a difference in the plug-in hybrid. I suspect that in our roller bag test, we'll be able to squeeze the same number of roller bags back here that we did last time. This cargo area is a little bit smaller than the one that we find in the Prius, but certainly a lot more upright because this has a much more traditional hatchback form rather than the really long liftback design that we find in the Prius. Under the floor, we have a subwoofer, the place to store your can of Fix-A-Flat and tire iron, and the load floor can be put in two different positions in the EV and in the hybrid model. That lowers the floor down, but has a little bit of a bump up there, so that way, if you fold the rear seat back, it actually is kind of a ramp up right there for cargo. In the plug-in hybrid, we have a bit of a quirk because of the location of the battery pack. So if I lift up the load foil, you notice the subwoofer is right there towards the back of that cargo area, and here we have this somewhat suspicious hump. At this point in time, I don't know exactly what's in this hump, but it probably relates to the electric drivetrain system. There is a bit of additional storage space on either side for your tire mobility kit, etc., but we don't have quite as much cargo space if you get the plug-in model. On the inside, the three models look very, very similar. We have a pretty standard sized moonroof right there over the driver and front passengers' heads, a headrest and seat design that is largely borrowed out of the EV6 with this sort of funky trumpet-shaped headrest there, plastic backs to the front seats. Both front seats integrate USB-C charge ports. The upholstery in here is made from recycled materials, as is the headliner of the vehicle, and it definitely has a distinctive design. It's a little bit hard to tell in this lighting, but this is sort of a multi-tone gray-on-gray seat fabric for the center section. These seats are both heated and ventilated. We have a little bit more bolstering than we had in the previous generation Niro, and definitely a very distinctive change to the dashboard. The style of this dashboard has largely been borrowed out of the EV6, but it's not exactly the same. It's a scaled version. So these two LCDs in the dashboard, these are just over 10 inches rather than the 12-inch screens that we find in the EV6, and you can see that the shape of it is a little bit different. Back over on the passenger side, we have well-integrated air vents there, some ambient lighting that runs right across the dashboard, a pretty decently sized glove compartment. It's a bin style. I would expect to be able to fit large tablet computers inside. The controversial item in here, borrowed from the EV6, is this instrument panel right here that serves as climate control and navigation and infotainment control. This is something that I still haven't gotten used to on our long-term EV6. I find myself wanting to change the climate control, finding that it's set to the volume knob and vice versa. Below that, we have two USB ports down there. One is a charge-only USB-C port. This one actually interfaces with the system for CarPlay and Android Auto. We have a Qi wireless charging mat, the power button, and a rotary shifter. You'll find this shifter in the plug-in hybrid and the full electric model with some buttons on either side. Two big cup holders back here that can be collapsed, that we can use this area for storage of other devices. It's a big storage area, as you can see, and it's kind of conjoined with this area right there under that center armrest. Also a feature borrowed out of the EV6 is the heads-up display. All the functionality is not quite the same, and we have the same sort of software going on for the driver's side instrument cluster as well as the infotainment system. If you're looking at the full EV version of the Niro, one quirk that you should be aware of is that this infotainment system will tell you can't reach your destination on the current battery charge, but it really won't do anything about it. It won't guide you to charging stations, etc., like we do find in some of the competition. You really have to DIY your own charging there. The steering wheel has also been borrowed style-wise out of the EV6. It has this very distinctive two-spoke design. On the back, we have regen paddles. The left paddle increases regen braking, the right paddle decreases regen braking. Then we find the controls for the adaptive cruise control as well as the infotainment system right there on either side. The drive mode button, that's been relocated right down there. One really cool touch is that the ambient lighting strips are color changeable, so we just simply go here in the infotainment system and you can choose the color for the various ambient lighting strips around the vehicle. You can also choose a custom color if you want to define your own. Now, on the inside of the hybrid model, the only major change is in the shifter. Instead of the rotary shifter, we have a more traditional T-shaped shifter right here, and paddle shifters rather than regen paddles on the back of the steering wheel because this still uses a 6-speed dual clutch transmission. As with most new Kias, the new Niro comes with a ton of driver assistance tech standard. We get autonomous emergency braking, lane centering, lane departure warning, blind spot monitoring, and rear cross traffic detection, all standard. There are still a few optional features, however, so things like radar adaptive cruise control, the more aggressive lane centering system they call highway driving assistant, and front and rear parking sensors. Those are optional features, but you're probably going to find them on most of the Niros on the dealer lot. At this point, the one thing that Kia has not said is how much the new Niro is going to cost, but they have sort of said that this is going to stick pretty close to the pricing formula on the 2021 model year vehicle. So hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and EV should be pretty similar to the ones that you're seeing on the website right now. This is going to be on sale towards the fall of 2022, so we should know pricing closer to that on sale date. But it's pretty easy to say that if you're looking for a solid hybrid right now with lots of cargo room, a really spacious interior, and over 50 miles per gallon, you should put the hybrid on your shopping list. If you can handle a shorter EV range in a plug-in hybrid, I know that a lot of people are offended by that. This is still going to be a very solid choice. One of the reasons, again, for the small battery pack in the plug-in hybrid is efficiency. Kia has not given us any official EPA fuel economy estimates for this plug-in hybrid, but I would not be surprised if it was really, really close in terms of gasoline efficiency to the non-plug-in hybrid model, but you get the 30 miles of electric range. So for me, in my particular situation, I should be able to commute almost entirely each way on electricity. I could then charge at the office, charge at home, and use very little gasoline. But the gasoline engine is still going to be on board for tasks like heating the cabin in really cold weather, when you want the full 180 horsepower to accelerate up a hill, or if you're climbing up steep grades for a long period of time, it's probably going to turn on the gasoline engine. So if you don't want that in your next plug-in hybrid, you have a relatively smaller number of options, you probably should look at something like a RAV4 hybrid, but it's going to cost an awful lot more than the Niro plug-in hybrid. And of course, if you want a full electric vehicle that's going to be less expensive than the EV6, perhaps a little less style forward, but actually I still think quite attractive, then you want the EV version. Be sure and let me know what you think about the styling of the new Niro down there in the comment section below. I have to say it's really grown on me. I love some of the accent details like the little turn signal indicators right here on the side view mirrors, and the headlight and front end arrangement has definitely grown on me. Interesting twist, they actually put a little part of the Tiger Nose grille right here at the very back of that hood. The only controversial part for me, again, really is this air blade section right back here. But if you're mightily offended by that, you could just take one to a body shop and have that body color painted. Or you could always have it wrapped by a wrap shop for a lot less, and you can have it be whatever color you wanted it to be. Hit that subscribe button down there if you haven't already done so, and be sure and stay tuned because I will have full reviews on all three of these vehicles coming up just as soon as I can. I'll see you all later.